Hi, my name's Peter. I'm a clinician and researcher in Australia. In this terrible coronavirus epidemic, I, like many other people, have been very concerned about the resource limitations for protective gear for healthcare workers. Other people have tried to develop do-it-yourself masks, and I have a proposed mask using readily available material, cotton briefs, that I'll show you in a moment. So there's evidence from the literature that cotton doesn't provide very good barrier properties against viruses. We've done some experiments to see whether soaking cotton in varying concentrations of honey may enhance the barrier properties. So here's a set of briefs. This is an extra large cotton briefs. The briefs have double layering at the front, and of course there is no slit at the front. It's important that there is no slit, and they have elastic. So I'm going to show you now how we make the cuts to form the mask. That opens up like that, and I do the corresponding thing on the other side. Alright, and so what we have here now is a form that looks like this. And what I then do is I'm going to pick it up, and the long strap is what I'm going to wrap around my head. Now, what I like to do is to fold the strap underneath like that. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making a single cut up the middle, and so that the final cut comes a little bit below the chin level. So I feel where my chin is, I go down just a little bit, maybe a few fingers, and I pinch that, so I hold that, and I put the whole set of briefs down, and I've made a note of where I'm going to cut to, and then I just cut up the middle. Okay, and now that's all the cuts that we make, and I'm going to put it back on. And this is important, so we've got these two strips hanging down, so fold them over like that and underneath the chin, and then tie them at the top. And so we have a very nice seal around underneath the chin and around the side of the face. Just showing you again what the cut brief looks like when all the cuts have been made. So studies that have examined the properties of mask uniformly show that if there is a good seal, that enhances their properties. And with this mask as it stands, there can be a space, or is a space, below the eyes here. So in order to optimize the seal, one can use simply pieces of sock. I've cut some pieces of sock here, and if you could roll them up, cut them in a triangular fashion so that you get an end which is a little bit fatter than the other. And then by using that and placing it under the elastic, where it sits rather nicely because of it's being pushed against the face, do it with the other one as well. And you can fold it up more if you like. And that's substantially improved the seal of this mask. So this is the apparatus that we use to evaluate the properties of the fabric of the mask with different concentrations of honey. So it's a means of testing the resistance of the fabric to flow of air, and it uses some plumbing parts, PVC pipe with a joiner. At this end we're able to put in examples of fabric attached as at the end of a piece of pipe, and at the other end we attach a balloon which is blown up to a specified size. The balloon is pinched here so that it doesn't deflate until we're ready. On release, the air blows through here, and what we're interested in is the time to deflate, which provides a measure of the resistance of the fabric at the end of this pipe on the other end. In order to undertake these experiments, we created different dilutions of honey and water, ranging from very dilute to really applying raw honey. And for each dilution we prepared a fabric which was dipped in it in such a way. This is just a segment of one of the pairs of briefs. So put in, dosed, squeezed. This is 50% honey here. Squeeze it in a little bit, and then this is hung out to dry. It takes about a day to dry. So we did that for a range of different dilutions, as I said. And once the fabric was dry, we cut small segments, placed them over this tube to form and wrapped it tightly around so that it's an air seal, creating what is literally a test tube. The question then became for us to examine the barrier property. We looked at the resistance of this fabric to flow of air and compared the resistance to air for the range of dilutions of honey in fabric. Just to show the materials that we used here in this study, this is the form of honey that we used. These are the briefs that we used. There were other packets that came in different colours. This is the N95 mask that we took a fragment from, and also a standard surgical mask. So here are the results. Along the bottom of the graph are the different barriers. On the vertical axis there's time, and each bar represents the time taken for the balloon to deflate in a single trial. For each barrier type, we took duplicate measurements. Along the bottom of the graph, from left to right, are the increasing concentrations of honey. At the right side of the graph, for comparison purposes, are the results for a regular surgical mask and for an N95 mask. You'll see that there is generally an increasing time for balloon deflation, and increasing resistance to the flow of air, with increasing concentration of honey in which the cotton was soaked. If you focus on the big circle, you see that the concentration of honey from 50% and above have comparable or longer times to deflation, resistance to airflow, as the two masks, the medically manufactured masks. So these results obviously relate to resistance to airflow. Presumably this has some relevance for risk of virus penetration, but it's not obviously a direct measure of that. Nevertheless, I think the results have some promise in suggesting that soaking cotton in honey at concentrations of 50% or more might significantly enhance the protective properties of the cotton masks. I think it would be valuable for these findings to be replicated and for other more direct assessments of whether honey added to cotton does enhance the anti-penetrative properties of the masks. So in terms of drenching the mask in honey, it's not necessary to put the whole mask in, because it's only this double-sided part of the cotton which is over the face. So by just placing that in and drenching it there and squeezing the honey in, that will save honey. So for a mask that is to be soaked in 50% honey, 50% water, all that's really needed is about 1 tablespoon of honey, and that's how much it's generally absorbed. So obviously there are very substantial limitations to this. It's a rather a crude appraisal of masks. I'm no expert in aerosols or indeed in masks. But in this time of great need, I think there is reason to put out any ideas that might have some benefit. Certainly where people have the opportunity to use properly created masks, that is absolutely the chosen route to take. But in the absence of any such availability, then people will make do with what they can. It's in that spirit that I offer these thoughts and these analyses. I hope that people will critique and take any thoughts that are of any use here further with the view of helping in this terrible state that we're in with this epidemic. I'd like to thank very much my son Zach, who's been a research assistant, director, cameraman and editor throughout this, and his friend Hobbs, who's assisted with some of the editing also. Be well, thank you.